The supermarket buzzed with life, customers rushing, carts clattering, voices rising. Behind the counter stood a young black cashier, her arm wrapped in a cheap sling, scanning groceries with one hand. No one noticed her pain. No one cared she had been working double shifts, barely able to stand. But one man in line was watching closely. He wasn't just another customer. He was the CEO of the entire chain, disguised as an ordinary shopper. And what he discovered about her life would shake the company to its core. The Brightmart Superstore's empire stretched across the United States, over 2,000 locations, thousands of employees, billions in annual revenue. For the board of directors, workers were numbers, schedules, payroll expenses. But for Ethan Walker, the CEO, the business had begun to feel distant. The further he climbed into wealth, the less he touched the real lives of his employees. That was why he agreed to a bold experiment, to go undercover. No tailored suits, no chauffeur, no entourage. Just jeans, a flannel shirt, and a baseball cap. A hidden camera crew disguised as documentary filmmakers followed him, capturing his journey as he walked into one of his own stores like any other customer. He thought he would learn about customer service, maybe catch a lazy manager, maybe reward a hardworking cashier. But what he found was something he could never have prepared for. Ethan entered the Brightmart in Atlanta on a Saturday afternoon. The store was chaos, long lines, kids crying, shelves half empty. He pushed his cart casually, observing. Most employees looked tired, but one cashier stood out immediately. She was young, maybe mid-BS, skin glistening under the fluorescent lights. Her name tag read, Maya J. Cashier. But it wasn't her name that caught his attention. It was her arm. Her right arm was strapped tightly in a cheap sling, the kind you get at an emergency clinic. And yet, with only her left hand, she was scanning items, bagging groceries, smiling at customers who hardly looked at her. A man in line ahead muttered impatiently. "Can you go any slower? Some of us have places to be." Maya forced a polite smile. "Sorry, sir. I'll be as quick as I can." Her left hand trembled as she tried to lift a gallon of milk, nearly dropping it before sliding it into a bag. Ethan's chest tightened. She should have been resting. She should have been home, healing. Instead, she was working two registers back to back, her lips pressed together to mask the pain. When it was Ethan's turn, he noticed how pale she looked, how the corners of her eyes showed exhaustion. He placed a few items on the belt and asked softly, "Are you okay? Your arm looks hurt." She gave a tired laugh. This? Just a fracture. Doctor said I should take time off, but I can't. Rent doesn't pay itself. Neither does my little brother's school tuition." Ethan froze. Rent. Tuition. Broken arm. Double shifts. And she was still here, working for his company, barely surviving. He wanted to ask more, but the line behind him grew restless. Maya handed him his receipt with her left hand, her smile brave but weary. "Thank you for shopping at Brightmart. Have a nice day." But Ethan didn't leave. Not yet. He pushed his cart aside and quietly observed her, heart sinking with every customer she served. She never complained. She never snapped back, even when insulted. She kept working, one arm, one hand, all while hiding a storm of pain. For the first time in years, Ethan Walker, the billionaire CEO, felt ashamed of his own company. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. The image of Maya's trembling hand haunted him. He replayed her words in his head, "Rent doesn't pay itself. Neither does my little brother's school tuition." Who was she? How had she fallen into this situation? And how had Brightmart, his creation, allowed this to happen? The next morning, Ethan returned, this time blending in even deeper, wearing an old delivery jacket. He applied as a temporary night stalker, using a fake name provided by the show's producers. His mission was simple: work alongside Maya, see the truth of her world, and understand what no boardroom ever revealed. Maya was shocked to see him again, this time as a new hire. She laughed nervously when they were introduced. "You sure you want to do this? Night shifts aren't for everyone." Ethan smiled humbly. "I'll manage. Besides, looks like you could use some backup." She shrugged. "Backup would be nice. But don't expect overtime pay. Around here, you work double and get paid single." Her honesty stung. He had read financial reports, profit margins, bonus sheets for executives. But this? This was the ground truth. His employees weren't thriving, they were surviving. Hours passed. Ethan stocked shelves, followed her lead, and listened carefully. Slowly, Maya's story unfolded. Her father had died when she was solar. Her mother worked as a cleaner until illness took her too. Left with a younger brother, Jordan, Maya had carried the family alone. She wanted to finish her degree in software engineering but had dropped out to keep food on the table. The broken arm? She had slipped on ice while rushing between jobs. No paid sick leave. No safety net. Just pain and bills. Yet she smiled. She encouraged her team. She even gave part of her paycheck to an older coworker whose rent was overdue. The deeper Ethan looked, the more he realized Maya wasn't just another cashier. She was the kind of leader his multimillion-dollar managers could never hope to be. And as the undercover days stretched on, Ethan faced the question that burned hotter with every shift. Would he reveal who he truly was? Or would he let the system he built continue crushing workers like Maya, until there was nothing left of their spirit? The hum of fluorescent lights filled the empty aisles. It was nearly midnight, and Brightmart felt like a ghost town compared to the chaos of the day. Ethan, still undercover in his delivery jacket, wheeled a pallet of canned goods into aisle 7. His arms ached, his back hurt, but he forced himself to keep going. Across the aisle, Maya stacked cereal boxes with one hand, her sling brushing against the shelves as she moved. Every time she bent down to lift a box, her face tightened in pain, but she never stopped. Ethan couldn't take it anymore. "Why are you here?" he asked, his voice low, almost breaking character. "With your arm like that, you should be resting." Maya chuckled, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Rest? If I rest, we don't eat. Rent falls behind." Jordan, she nodded toward her brother's photo, taped inside her locker, loses his chance at college. "Rest is a luxury people like me can't afford." Ethan swallowed hard. He had heard similar stories in reports, but seeing it, hearing it, was different. Her courage wasn't just survival, it was sacrifice. As the night shift dragged on, Ethan witnessed more than he expected. Broken equipment, carts with missing wheels, registers that froze mid-transaction, staff forced to work around it because repairs weren't in the budget. Exhausted workers, an older janitor limped through the aisles, cleaning silently. Maya whispered that he'd been denied retirement benefits after 25 years of service. Cut corners, refrigerators ran too warm, spoiling milk, but managers pushed employees to sell it anyway. Every detail etched itself into Ethan's conscience. This wasn't just one store, this was his company. His empire. Around 2 a.m., Ethan noticed Maya slipping something into a paper bag. It wasn't theft, he looked closer. It was groceries. Bread, milk, a carton of eggs. "Who's that for?" he asked. Maya hesitated. Then she sighed. "Mrs. Lang, she's one of our janitors. Her paycheck barely covers her medicine, let alone food. She won't accept charity, so I make it look like inventory error." Ethan was stunned. Maya, injured, broke, overworked, was still feeding others. She was doing more for his employees than the executives who cashed six-figure bonuses. The next evening, during a brief break, Maya and Ethan sat outside the loading dock, sipping vending machine coffee. The night air was sharp, the kind that seeps into your bones. You are new, Maya said, studying him. But you don't seem like the others. You listen too much. You ask questions. Ethan forced a laugh. Is that a bad thing? She tilted her head, smiling faintly. No. It's just, you don't seem like someone who belongs in a place like this. For a moment, Ethan panicked. Could she see through him? He quickly changed the subject, asking about her brother, Jordan. Her eyes lit up. He's brilliant. Top of his class. Wants to be an engineer. I promised him he'll go to college, no matter what it takes. Ethan nodded, hiding the storm inside him. How many Mayas existed across Bright Mart? How many dreams were crushed under double shifts and broken systems? 2 nights later, chaos erupted at the store. A delivery truck failed to arrive, leaving shelves empty. Customers shouted at cashiers, tempers flared. Maya, working the front alone, struggled to keep the line moving with her good hand. A customer slammed a basket down. This is ridiculous. Can't you people do anything right? Ethan stepped in, pretending to be another worker, but before he could act, Maya lifted her chin. Her voice trembled but stayed firm. I'm doing my best, sir. Please understand, we are short-staffed and working double shifts. But I'll make sure you are taken care of. Even in humiliation, she stayed calm. Ethan's chest burned with anger, not at Maya, but at himself. He was the reason. His policies. His cost-cutting. His boardroom decisions. At the end of the shift, Ethan offered to walk Maya home. She resisted at first, but eventually agreed. Her apartment was small, walls cracked, heater barely working. Her brother Jordan sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by textbooks. When he saw Maya, he jumped up, hugging her gently to avoid her injured arm. You are late again, he said softly. You've got to rest. Maya smiled, brushing his cheek. I'll rest when you graduate, little brother. Ethan stood silently in the doorway, overwhelmed. This wasn't just survival. This was love, grit, and sacrifice rolled into one. Back at his hotel, Ethan stared at his reflection in the mirror. For years, he had built Bright Mart on profit margins and stockholder demands. But now he saw the cost, paid not in dollars, but in broken arms, sleepless nights, and stolen dreams. He clenched his fists. Something had to change. But how? And what would happen when Maya discovered who he truly was? The next day at Bright Mart was heavier than usual. The holiday season was approaching, and the store was drowning in customers. Carts jammed the aisles, the registers beeped non-stop, and tempers boiled over at the smallest delays. Ethan, still disguised as an ordinary, new hire, grabbed crates of canned soup and rushed to stock shelves. Sweat dripped down his back. He had managed billion-dollar deals in boardrooms, but here, the smallest task left him drained. And yet, Maya was still there, one arm in a sling, moving faster than workers with both hands. Every time Ethan glanced at her, his guilt deepened. She was the face of Bright Mart's invisible workforce, the backbone he had ignored for years. That afternoon, the store manager, Mr. Carlyle, strutted out of his office. A tall man with a thin mustache and an inflated sense of authority, Carlyle treated employees like they were disposable. Maya, he barked across the register lanes. You are slower than usual today. Customers are complaining. I need you to pick up the pace. Maya's lips parted slightly, but she didn't protest. She nodded and kept scanning. Ethan, stocking shelves nearby, clenched his jaw. He wanted to yell, to reveal who he really was and fire Carlyle on the spot. But he couldn't, not yet. Carlyle smirked, turning to Ethan. And you, rookie. Don't think I don't notice you slacking. You are not here to chat. Get those shelves filled or you are gone. Ethan forced himself to nod, swallowing his pride. For the first time, the billionaire CEO tasted the bitterness of his own system from the other side. Later, during a short break, Ethan found Maya sitting outside the store, sipping water from paper cup. She looked pale, her face drawn tight with exhaustion. "You should have said something," Ethan muttered. "You can't let him talk to you like that." Maya shook her head, a faint smile on her lips. "Standing up to him won't change anything. He's management. If I fight back, I lose my job. And then what happens to Jordan? No rent, no tuition. Sometimes silence is survival." Her words cut deep. Silence is survival. Ethan realized this was the unspoken rule for thousands of employees across his empire. They endured because the alternative was homelessness, hunger, or worse. Despite everything, Maya's presence lifted others. When an elderly cashier's scanner broke, Maya quietly swapped registers, working both lines. When a young stalker dropped a glass jar, she rushed over, cleaning it with one hand while assuring him, "It's just glass, not the end of the world." When a customer lashed out at another worker, Maya stepped in, absorbing the insult herself. She wasn't just a cashier, she was a leader. The kind of leader Ethan desperately needed in his boardrooms. One night, after closing, Ethan saw Maya pulling a small notebook from her bag. Curiosity tugged at him. "What's that?" he asked. She hesitated, then showed him. Inside were detailed sketches, designs for an app she dreamed of building. A budget tracker for low-income families, to help them stretch every dollar. "I know it sounds silly," she said softly. "I studied computer science before life happened. I had to drop out when mom got sick. But sometimes, when I get minute, I still dream." Ethan stared at the pages. Her ideas were brilliant, innovative, practical, and deeply human. Ideas that his multimillion-dollar innovation teams could never match. "It's not silly," Ethan whispered. "It's genius." For a moment, Maya looked at him with curiosity, as if she saw something more in this rookie stalker than he admitted. The following week pushed Ethan to the edge. A blizzard hit the city. Deliveries were delayed, shelves went empty, customers turned vicious. Carlyle screamed at employees, threatening write-ups for mistakes beyond their control. Maya, still with one arm, worked a 16-hour shift without complaint. At 2 a.m., she collapsed onto a stool in the break room, her face buried in her good hand. Ethan sat across from her, his chest aching. He couldn't stay silent anymore. Every second he delayed, she and others like her were suffering. He opened his mouth to speak, to tell her who he really was. But before the words came, Carlyle barged in, holding a clipboard. "Maya, I need you back on register. Now." "Break's over." Ethan's fists curled. His secret burned on his tongue. The truth clawed to be free. Maya stood up without protest, adjusting her sling. Ethan followed, his disguise still intact, but his resolve crumbling. He couldn't keep pretending much longer. He had seen enough. He had felt enough. And soon, the entire company, the entire country, would see what he had seen. The winter storm raged outside, covering the streets in sheets of white, but inside bright mud the heat of chaos burned hotter than ever. Shelves were stripped bare, customers argued loudly, and the line at the registers stretched all the way down the frozen foods aisle. Ethan moved quickly, stacking what little stock remained while sneaking glances toward Maya. Her sling was fraying, her arm stiff, yet she stood at her register with the same steady focus as always. Every beep of the scanner was another reminder of how much weight she carried, and every polite smile she forced hid the pain she lived with. As Ethan wheeled another cart of supplies forward, he noticed a group of angry customers crowding Maya's line. They were shouting, demanding answers about missing products, and Carlyle, the store manager, was nowhere to be found. Maya raised her good hand, trying to calm them. Her voice was soft, controlled, but the frustration in the air was thick. The customers were tired, hungry, desperate. And still she never snapped. She apologized, she explained, and she shouldered every bit of their anger as if it was her fault. Ethan wanted to step in, to defend her, but something stopped him. There was strength in the way she handled herself. Even under fire, she remained the kind of person who carried everyone else on her back. That quiet strength silenced the crowd far more than shouting would have. He realized again that she wasn't just another cashier, not just a name on a timesheet. She was the kind of leader his company needed more than the ones in their offices. Hours dragged into the night, and the storm outside grew worse. Some employees didn't show up for their shifts, leaving those inside stretched beyond their limits. Ethan worked beside Maya, lifting, carrying, doing everything he could to share her load, but no matter how much he helped, she seemed to be carrying something invisible that no one else could touch. When the last of the customers left, she sunk into the stool behind the counter, her hair damp with sweat, her face pale. He sat down across from her, pretending to take a break. She didn't speak at first. She just stared down at her lap, then quietly pulled out her small notebook again. Ethan leaned closer, and she gave him a shy smile before flipping it open. More sketches, more plans, notes written in cramped handwriting about the app she dreamed of building. Her ideas were sharper now, ways to link discounts directly to low-income shoppers, ideas for predictive budgeting, designs for a community pantry network. "You never stop thinking, do you?" Ethan whispered. She laughed softly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "If I stop thinking, I stop hoping. And if I stop hoping, then what's left?" The words hit him harder than he expected. He had spent years hoping for stock growth, hoping for mergers, hoping for bigger numbers on reports. Her hope was different. Her hope was survival. Her hope was her brother's future. And suddenly, his billions felt worthless in comparison. The next evening, Carlyle cornered Ethan near the stockroom. The manager's eyes narrowed. "You've been spending a lot of time with that cashier," he said coldly. "Don't think I haven't noticed. New hires don't get to slack around. Stick to your job or you'll be out on the street like the rest of them." Ethan bit his tongue, fighting the instinct to reveal who he was, to strip Carlyle of his badge and send him packing. But he stayed silent. His mission wasn't over yet. Carlyle turned away, muttering under his breath, and Ethan clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white. That night, Maya worked another double shift. By closing time her face was ghostly pale, and when she tried to lift a box of produce with her good arm, she stumbled. Ethan caught it before it hit the ground. "That's enough," he said firmly. "You're hurting yourself." Maya shook her head, trying to smile, though her eyes glistened. "If I stop, the work doesn't. Someone has to keep this place running." Her voice cracked, but she quickly composed herself. She was used to hiding her pain, burying it beneath duty. And yet, Ethan could see her breaking piece by piece. He knew she couldn't keep this pace forever, and neither could he keep pretending to be someone else. On the way out, Maya invited him to walk with her again. They trudged through the snow-covered streets, their breaths rising in clouds. The silence between them was heavy, not uncomfortable, but full of unspoken truths. When they reached her apartment, Georgian opened the door and greeted her with a smile that faded the moment he saw her face. He knew she was pushing herself too far. He begged her to rest, but she only ruffled his hair and assured him everything would be fine. Ethan lingered in the corner, watching, feeling like an intruder in a story he had no right to witness. As he walked back to his hotel that night, guilt gnawed at him like never before. He had seen Maya's life up close, the sacrifices she made, the strength she carried, and the pain she hid. He knew he couldn't stay in disguise much longer. The weight of his secret was crushing him, and every time he looked at her sling, every time he heard her laugh through exhaustion, he felt himself slipping closer to revealing the truth. But the question haunted him: if he told her, would she trust him? Or would she see him as just another rich man playing games with her life? And more importantly, could he really change a system that had failed her so badly? The storm outside roared on, but inside Ethan's chest, another storm was brewing. The storm passed, but inside Brightmart, a different kind of storm was about to break. Ethan had been walking into worlds, one as a billionaire CEO in hiding, and another as an ordinary stock boy witnessing the unbreakable spirit of Maya. He had seen her broken arm, her double shifts, her quiet resilience. He had watched her sacrifice herself for everyone else, all while Carlyle, the manager, crushed her under his indifference. It was the last evening of his undercover assignment. The store buzzed with customers, the weight of exhaustion heavy in the air. Maya worked her register, her arm stiff in its sling, yet her voice was steady. Ethan stood a few aisles away, watching her, knowing that after tonight, nothing could remain the same. When Carlyle stormed across the floor, yelling at Maya for being too slow, something inside Ethan snapped. Carlyle snatched the small notebook from her counter, the notebook filled with her sketches, her plans, her hope, and sneered. "Daydreams don't pay bills, Maya. You are just a cashier. Remember that." The store went silent. Maya's face turned pale, her lips parted, but she said nothing. Ethan stepped forward, his disguise peeling away with every stride. His voice carried across the aisles, calm yet commanding. "That's enough." Carlyle spun, glaring. "And who do you think you are? A stock boy giving orders?" Ethan's jaw tightened. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his ID badge, sleek, polished, unmistakable. Carlyle froze, his face draining of color as the name burned in his eyes. Ethan Walker, CEO of Brightmart. The room seemed to stop breathing. Maya blinked in disbelief, her good hand trembling over the register. The employees gasped, the customers whispered. Carlyle stumbled backward. "Why you are?" "Yes," Ethan said firmly. "I own this company. And I've seen enough." He turned to the employees. "I've walked these aisles. I've carried these boxes. I've worked beside you. And what I found here, what I saw Maya endure, is unacceptable." His voice grew stronger, echoing through the store. "No one with a broken arm should be forced into double shifts. No one should be silenced for dreaming. And no manager who treats his people like this will stay in my company a single day longer." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Carlyle tried to speak, but Ethan's glare silenced him. Security arrived, summoned quietly by Ethan's call earlier, and escorted Carlyle out. The store erupted in murmurs. For the first time, the employees saw hope flicker where despair had long reigned. Ethan turned to Maya. She stared at him, stunned, betrayed, and overwhelmed all at once. "You lied," she whispered. "All this time, you were him." He nodded slowly. "Yes. And I'm sorry. I didn't come here to mock you or play games. I came here because I needed to know the truth, what my company was doing to people like you. And you showed me." Maya shook her head, her eyes brimming with tears. "Why me?" "Because you never gave up," Ethan said softly. "Even when you were in pain. Even when you were carrying more than anyone should. You showed me strength that I'll never forget. And those ideas in your notebook, they're brilliant. The world needs them." The employees gathered closer, listening. Ethan placed the notebook back in Maya's hands, this time with a promise. "I want you on my team. Not as a cashier. Not as someone hidden behind a register. But as a voice in this company. Let's build this app of yours. Let's change the way Brightmart works, for the people who need it most." Maya's lips trembled. She looked at her brother, who had appeared quietly at the end of the aisle, his eyes wide with hope. Then she looked back at Ethan, her heart torn between disbelief and a fragile new faith. An undercover boss walked into a Brightmart store, disguised as a stock boy. He saw a young black cashier, Maya, working double shifts, her arm in a sling, but never complaining. Her manager, Carlyle, mocked her, even tore her notebook filled with ideas. But one night, the truth came out. The stock boy stepped forward, pulled out his ID, and the entire room froze. He wasn't just a worker, he was Ethan Walker, the CEO of Brightmart. Carlyle was fired on the spot. Ethan turned to Maya and said, "You don't belong behind a register. You belong on my team. Your ideas can change this company and the world." The store erupted in applause. Maya, standing in tears, clutched her notebook, realizing her life had just changed forever. Sometimes, the smallest voices carry the power to shake an empire.